Hey guys, Jay here with Word of Advice TV, and in this video I have an important furnace maintenance tip for everybody that has a high efficiency furnace, especially if the brand of your furnace is a Carrier, Payne, or a Bryant furnace. All high efficiency furnaces condense or extract water from the combustion fumes that they're exhausting, and this water needs a drain system or a drain line to come out of the furnace. And inside of this drain system, there's a condensate drain trap, which oftentimes looks like this. And with time, as water continues to flow through this condensate drain trap and down the drain line, there's scale, mineral buildup, and other debris that starts to build up inside of this condensate trap. And once these channels get more and more plugged up, eventually, give it a couple of years, they become fully blocked. And then the water that is supposed to go down the drain starts to back up into the furnace. There's a collector box, which is behind the inducer motor. It starts to back up into that collector box, and as the water level rises, the pressure switch in the furnace trips. And then everything stops working. And the worst part about this is that this usually happens on the coldest days of the year. And the reason for that is because sometimes this condensate drain trap is not plugged completely, but it's plugged up enough where the water gradually starts to back up. And on the coldest days of the year, when the furnace is running almost non-stop, that gives it a whole lot more time to let the water back up completely until it trips that pressure switch. So eventually you start noticing that the temperature in your house starts to drop gradually. Your furnace is not keeping up. This problem can be a little bit tricky because if you call a service technician out to take a look at your furnace because it's not working, by the time he gets out there, if this thing is partially plugged, it may just have had enough time to drain out whatever water was backed up. So when the technician comes out here and resets the power to the furnace, it might just turn on and run just fine and he won't find any problems. And then in a couple of hours, the problem will come back. So if you have a high efficiency furnace and you've never cleaned the condensate trap on it, this problem is bound to happen to you. So as preventative maintenance, I would get that cleaned before it happens to you on the coldest day of the year. Luckily, cleaning it up is not too difficult. Let me go ahead and show you how to do it. The unit I have over here is a horizontal furnace, which means that the house that this furnace was in, it was on its side, and this condensate trap was coming out from the bottom of it. To begin with, we can go ahead and take this drain hose off. You simply press down on this clamp and I like to twist the hose until it comes off. Or you can just move this clamp further down. And if this hose is not twisting off, oh, there you go, it came off. But if this wasn't twisting off, sometimes what I would do is just put my pliers on the hose right here and just help it twist off. Usually that is more than enough to get it off. Of course, you don't want to bite too hard on it because then you might crack the whole thing and it's going to start leaking from there. But if you accidentally damage it as you're taking it off, or maybe it was already cracked to begin with, you could always cut a small piece of the end of it off to remove the damaged part. I should also warn you that you should have a towel and maybe even a little bucket handy when you're doing this, because sometimes when you take these hoses off, a ton of water comes rushing out. So it's good to be prepared for that. Next up, we're going to have to take the front cover off the furnace and disconnect the hoses that are inside. If you have a furnace that is standing upright, it's an upflow or a downflow furnace, your condensate trap is going to be either right over here, going down, or it's going to be over here. So it's going to be completely inside the furnace. See where this little knockout is? It would be right here on this furnace, and they even have another hose right here that goes to the collector box. This black thing is the collector box. This would hook up to the condensate trap if it was in here. But like I said, in my case, this furnace was set up as a horizontal furnace, so this condensate trap goes out right through the side. Disconnecting the tubes and hoses on the inside is usually pretty easy, although sometimes they can be in a pretty tight spot. The pressure switch hose, that should just pop right off. That one comes off easy, and the other ones are secured in place by hose clamps. With a few pairs of pliers, you should be able to get those off pretty easily. I usually go with a pair of Knipex pliers and a pair of lineman pliers, and that gets the job done. So all you need to do is simply grab the hose clamp, depress it, and pull it off the port. Like that. And once that clamp is off, you can pretty easily get that off the port. And if it's not coming off, like I said with the drain hose, you could just kind of bite down on it right where the port is and twist it back and forth, and that should be enough to break it off. So we got this one off too. And this one, if you have an elbow like this, sometimes it's glued on and sometimes it's not. Hopefully it's not, that way you can just pull it right off. Otherwise you would have to just press down on this clamp and take it off the same way we did with this one. So let me see if it's glued. Nope, it's not. Nice. So that comes right off. Now that the hoses are off, we can take this thing out. There's 2 tabs on either end. You have to press on them and then twist the whole thing upwards or to the side, just like that. And here's a closer look at those 2 tabs that I was talking about. So you press those in and this thing should swivel right out. All the hoses are different sizes, so you can't mess this up when you're putting them back on. And they're even labeled on the back here where each one of these ports goes to. Now let me show you how I clean these things. The way I do it is by pouring water into one of the ports and closing all the other ports with my fingers. Once I have enough water in there where you could see it squirting back out, I close the last port and then shake that trap vigorously, really hard, to get all that stuff in there freed up. Dump all the water out, rinse, and repeat. You're probably gonna see a bunch of gunk come out of there and maybe even some bugs, and that's normal. That stuff does tend to get in there. Rinsing it like this should be enough, but if you want to go the extra mile, you could soak the condensate trap in some warm water for about an hour and then rinse the whole thing out. That's definitely gonna get it all clean. Personally, I never soak these. I just rinse them and shake them like I just showed you. I keep doing that over and over and over again until that black gunk stops coming out. Once the condensate trap is fully cleaned out, you can go ahead and put it back the same way you took it out. If you didn't break these tabs, you should hear a snap when you got it back in place securely. Once you got it back in, all you gotta do is just hook your hoses back up and you are set to go. And that is how you clean the condensate trap on a furnace. Of course, if you have a different brand of furnace, your trap may look a little bit different, but the concept should be the same. Remove all the hoses, take the trap out, and rinse it out. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. And if you're still here and not yet in the comments section, let me tell you a couple of dad jokes before you go. Why did the old woman fall into the well? Because she could not see that well. And why was the baby ant confused? Well, that's because all of his uncles were ants.